You are now listening to the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. Welcoming you, taking a lap of extra mile for today, July 15th, 2021. Well, there's only one race this week, but that doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of controversy out of Hotlanta. We're going to get all to that. Also got Taylor Evans coming on the show at 8:15 to talk everything H1 Unlimited. They had an interesting couple of weeks. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. And usually this will be the time where I welcome in my co-hosts. Unfortunately, I don't have any this week. I'm riding solo as it is the fourth wedding anniversary for Christopher Lehman. Congratulations to Christopher and his wife. And of course, Michael's still dealing with equipment issues. Hoping to get him back here soon. But you've got me tonight, but to steal a line from many, many military-style games and movies, me's a lot. So we will get into the program right now. I want to welcome everyone for listening this evening, and we're going to start, of course, with our weekly race reviews. And we're going to start with, of course, the only race that we had this week, which was the Quaker State 400. The last race on the current Atlanta surface as they're getting ready for a reconfiguring and repaving of the program. And believe me, I have words about that. But this race was a lot of fun. The Hotlanta surface lived up to its name. It was slick. Drivers had to go searching for grip, which lended itself to the multi-groove racing we're usually able to see at Atlanta. Shame what's going to happen to that place when they repave it. If you haven't noticed, I'm not a fan of the Atlanta repave, by the way. And it came down again to the Busch brothers. And just like in Kentucky a few years ago, Kurt Busch got the best of younger brother Kyle Busch for the win in the Quaker State 400. But it was not easy, and it took a little bit of help from Kurt Busch's friend as Ross Chastain got up there, disturbed the air in front of Kyle Busch's car. Whether or not that was, actually, I'm not even going to say whether or not. They basically said they were team driving, y'all. They were team driving. And Kyle Busch had a problem with it. I did not have a problem with how that race ended. I'm going to be honest. You have team cars out there. This type of stuff is going to happen. Now, it's not that often that you see this in NASCAR. Usually have the second car hold up a guy that the first car has to beat or want an advantage over. It's usually something we see in sports car racing here, not so much in IndyCar. We see it a lot in Europe, especially in Formula One, where team orders is basically a thing, because Formula One is the closest thing, I would say, to a stick and ball sport in motorsports, where the team is the most important. Yeah, the two drivers are out there, but at the end of the day, it's about the teams and the Constructors' Championship over there. That's what they are looking the most forward to. Whoever wins the Drivers' Championship, the teams will be happy with whoever, but they want to get that big, shiny Constructors' Trophy and that check that comes with it at the end. So I understand how some people were upset. Kyle Busch, obviously, he didn't win, but when is Kyle ever happy when he doesn't win? You know, that's just the type of guy he is. I think it was fine. Honestly, if there was a JGR car up there, if the teams were reversed, I'd be shocked if it didn't happen the same way. So Kyle got mad. He was mad a lot this weekend. A lot of the drivers were mad a lot this weekend. Didn't really see a problem with it. Hendrick Motorsports, though, they have been dominant when we started the summer. Cooling off now just a little bit. Alex Bowman ended up 4th. He was the highest finisher of that team. Chase Elliott 9th. Looking for William Byron. I have to go back to 20th. Not a good day for him. And Kyle Larson just signed a 2-year contract extension with HendrickCars.com on the car. Ended up 18th. Had a speeding penalty that put him back that far. Kyle did have a good day. Unfortunately, that speeding penalty kind of ruined it. It seems that they're starting to come back to earth. Now, there's a rumor that NASCAR may have told them to adjust, air quote, their noses. I'm not going to say they had anything to do with it, but after they put their shellacking on the field at Nashville, they haven't been as strong as they were beforehand. So it's something worth looking into. But we're coming up now to the last few races. Actually, I think the last race until we get to the winner, to the Summer Olympic break. And yes, because Taryn, he's here in the chat, also had a Hendrick car, had Kyle Larson to win, did not win. That did not help us in nearest the win. But we are coming up to that grand old break here. New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We're going to go to Foxwoods Casinos 301. Then we're going to have the Olympic break. So a little bit of time for the teams to rest and recuperate after what has been a long, but thankfully, much better season than what we had around this time in 2020. But we'll get back to that in a moment. It's time for another episode of Darryl Gets Mad. Hello, Marcus. We talked about the new car last week. Now we're going to talk about Atlanta and the repave. Allegedly, Atlanta Motor Speedway folks said they talked to the drivers about this reconfiguring they're doing, they're shortening the surface of the track, or not shortening, they're lessening how much racing room they have, and they're also changing the banking from 24 to 28 degrees to try and get closer, more pack-like racing. SMI said they talked to the drivers. The drivers said, who'd you talk to? Because the top 20 in points all said no one talked to them. And folks, this is the first time I've heard the drivers this disgruntled. Kyle Busch basically went on a multi-minute rant trashing what they're going to do with Atlanta Motor Speedway, according to Twitter reports. There's also some stories written about it as well. The drivers aren't happy. They don't feel like they're being listened to. There's a lot of concerns about the safety of the new car after that little nugget dropped when people from the industry came out and made their feelings known about what was going on with that. And whether or not you want to say that was overblown, it's a part of a bigger issue where NASCAR is not listening to the people in the sport. And folks, that's how the IndyCar split happened. When the sanctioning body and the teams started falling out, the teams went and made their own series. And the IndyCar kart civil war was devastating for open wheel in America. IndyCar at one point, or a kart as it was at the time, was the number one motorsport in America. Now, it is a shell of its former self. It barely gets, and this is for IndyCar races, half the ratings of an Xfinity race. And you want to know why? So many people got disenfranchised by the split. They just said, I'm done. I'm not going to watch this anymore. Some people came over to NASCAR. Some people went over to other sports. Some may have left motorsports entirely and went to watch stick and ball sports or just stayed at their local track. NASCAR is starting to set the conditions where we could see what happened with the IndyCar split happen in the Cup Series. The drivers are upset. They're concerned about the safety of the car, and the leadership has been absent. We just had a massive S-storm in the sport for 2 weeks. Where were the Steves? Seriously, Steve O'Donnell, where you at though? Y'all supposed to be running this sport. Nobody came out and got in front of this. Nobody came off their year-plus Twitter hiatus to assure the industry and the fans that everything's being taken care of in the sport. Are you kidding me? Scott Miller came out and said, there's a lot of fiction out there. Prove us wrong. Show us what the real thing is. It's that big of a deal. I mean, it was that big of a deal. And like I said last week, it hasn't been that long since Dale Sr. died. And I'm sorry, the only people I heard from this week were Scott Miller and John Probst. I don't really care what they have to say. I want to hear from the two Steves, Steve O'Donnell, I can't remember the last name of the other one right now, and I definitely want to hear from Jim France. Your sport is in turmoil. Where is my leadership? Okay, this type of ambivalence is going to lead to a split. And if you thought the IndyCar split was bad, a NASCAR split, especially with ARCA being gone, that's stock car, big time stock car racing in America done. Because you're not in a good place right now as it is. The heyday of NASCAR has been years ago. And now we're sitting here where you guys just want to hide in the shadows, but everything's fine, everything's okay. Everything is not fine. I need to hear from you when your sport is having a crisis. And there are two crises going on right now. Whether or not the next gen car is safe, the Atlanta Motor Speedway, and the general drivers aren't being listened to. I need Steve O'Donnell in the media center talking. I need Jim France on NASCAR Race Day or NASCAR America or giving interviews on the NBC pre-race talking about we're going to get things better, we're going to listen to our drivers, we're going to put this straight. And is that going to change anything? Don't know. But it shows me that the leadership is engaged. It doesn't feel like they're engaged to me. And the problem is we just had this with Brian before he had his incident. Jim France came back. It felt like things were going to be different. We've gone right back to what we were doing. We see Jim at the Daytona 500. Haven't seen him since. This has to change. I need this sports leadership to wake up. And I wouldn't stand on the soapbox with this platform, with this microphone every week if I didn't love this sport. But it's getting harder and harder to justify it when everything is trending in the wrong direction. We've got ambivalent leadership. We've got extreme concern. I don't want to say extreme, so I don't want to temper the language there. We have concerns about the new car that, in my opinion, have not been addressed fully. And there's just a general feeling the fans aren't being listened to. The drivers aren't being listened to. I guess the teams are being listened to. That's a problem. It needs to be fixed post-haste. Because I've already said, I've been on record, we kill somebody at the Daytona 500 because this new car was unsafe and we didn't do anything to fix it, I'm out. I really am. I've done a lot with this sport. I will not sit by and watch negligence. And Taryn, it's funny that you say that. I'll read his comments that NASCAR's leadership is kind of like the NCAA, but worse. I still might think the NCAA is worse just because that whole amateurism debacle, but it's getting close. It's getting within DRS range, if that makes sense, to use a racing adage here. Things have to change in this sport. They really do. And if we're going to go into the next gen, we got to have next gen leadership too, or we're going to have worse problems than what we've already had. So I will hop off the soapbox now and thank our very fine sponsor, the Southern California Warriors Semi-Pro Football Team. Hey folks, the world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization on the planet. Got players out here that are in it, playing in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or hey, just trying to get that cardio in and staying in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere else in the world, why don't you give semi-pro sports a chance? You may get that second chance in sports that you've been waiting for as an athlete. Make sure you follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors, on Instagram at Southern California _Warriors, and Facebook at Southern California Warriors. Thank you so much to the SC Warriors for sponsoring IE Sports Radio, and The Extra Mile. Well, we'll be right back. When we do, special guest Taylor Evans, crew chief for Bucket List Racing, will be joining us. We're going to talk all things hydros as we're getting ready for the Hapo Columbia Cup that comes in next week. We'll be right back here on The Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Rate, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to the Extra Mile here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And folks, I've probably talked about it about 17,000 times now, but back in June, I got the opportunity of a lifetime to go see an H1 Unlimited hydroplane race in action for the first time. As you know, we've added H1 to the repertoire of motorsports we talk about. We're getting ready for round 3 of the season, coming up next week with the Hapo Columbia Cup. And a good friend of mine that I've met over the pandemic and over the time of Saturday Night Hydroplane League is joining me to talk not only about that, but the team in general and everything that goes through setting up an H1 Unlimited hydroplane. I've got here with me the crew chief for Bucket List Racing, Taylor Evans, joining us on the program. Taylor, thank you so much for joining me here on the Extra Mile. How you doing, man? And how's it feel to be back on the West Coast after you guys had a couple of races, I would say on the East Coast, but more towards the Midwest, if we're being honest?
It feels real good to be back, and thanks for having me. It feels great to be home and back at the shop. It kind of tunes you back into real time again because you're in race mode while you're traveling, and you get back and you're starting to work on the shop, and you got to work on the boats in the shop and getting caught up.
Let's go to that first. You guys left in the beginning or near the end of June to go to Guntersville, Alabama for the Guntersville Lake Hydro Fest. You didn't go back west. You guys went north to Madison, and then you went home. Talk a little bit about how stressful that is for these teams like Bucket List Racing to pack up all this gear and have to truck it 2 weeks and hope nothing happens to the boats.
Well, it's obviously stressful, but you pack and you prep and you try to get everything lined up to where going on those East Coast trips or those across country trips are not too much of a worry. You know, we try to pack spares and make sure that all of our things are lined up to where we can get through both races and hopefully not have any issues.
That's kind of leading me right into my next question, because unfortunately there were issues for Bucket List Racing, and I guess we can go through the review. We can start at Guntersville, and I always remember this probably as long as I live. We're standing there at the gate waiting to come in, and we see a pretty orange boat come flying by on a heater. And that'll be the last time we'd see that pretty orange boat, as the 440 ran into some issues. The U40 also got through qualifying. And then we got to the heats, and the best way I can explain it is everything that could go wrong with that boat did until the final. So I was going to ask you what went wrong in Gunnersville, but I think it'd be more appropriate to just ask the question, what didn't go wrong for you guys in Gunnersville?
Well, that was a perfect way to put it. That is a saying that goes around the shop with us all the time is what can go wrong will go wrong, and that's what happened. There was a few things that came out of nowhere that bit us, and it bit us pretty good. And it's small, silly stuff, but it just shows you the orchestra that goes on to putting on or attending a race and trying to be a competitor. It just shows you everything that needs to fall into place, needs to go right, and the importance of making sure everything is right before you hit the water. And we had a real eye opener there in Gunnersville. We had just about everything go wrong. And we're not going to put the boat in the water, or we're not going to send it out if it's either one, unsafe, or two, going to damage equipment and not be a positive gain. And that's kind of what we faced a little bit. We got them sorted out. We thought that we had everything lined up. We spent a year and a half. I mean, we never stopped working on the boat, and a lot of what's happening is gremlins with a new team, a new boat, a new. We ran the U440 for many years, and it's a T53 hull. It's a smaller turbine hull, and we make our own gearboxes, and we make our own propellers, we make our own shafts, we make our own parts. And we ran the team a certain way on the 440, and moving to the big boat, there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of, years and years of knowledge that have gone into the T55 programs that you can benefit from, but it's still a new program. It doesn't matter if we ran a boat, a boat for years and years and years. You take on a whole different engine and gearbox and propeller program, it changes things quite drastically, and we found that out. But to answer your question, the things that went right, to be honest with you, looking back at it now, I wish that weekend wouldn't have happened the way it did, but I'm grateful it did happen if you're looking at the positives, because everybody on the team realized how important it is to have all your ducks in a row and how to combat issues that you'll have, that every team has. And so what went right is we really grew as a team, and there for the final, we just kept our nose clean. Dave went out there and ran laps, and we waited for other people to make mistakes, and we benefited from it coming out with a third place. So that in a whole is a positive, but that was a rough weekend.
Yeah, that was a wild final, by the way. Seeing Tater blow the DMZ the way he did, and then we had two jumps on the start. It really looked every bit of guys that have not run a final in a year and a half, to be honest.
Oh yeah, no, we had talked about that in the truck before the weekend started. About the best game plan might just be laying low, keeping your heads clean, and just wait for other people to make mistakes. Racing in general, and especially hydroplane racing, is a chess match, and you need to play your opponent. And we figured the best route would be, let's lay low. We've had a year and a half of a year or two of no racing, and people are going to be eager. People are going to have energy, and they're going to make mistakes. And unfortunately for us, we made our own mistakes, but in the end, it paid off in the final. We're not there for a third. We're there for a first, but we're happy to come away with it after the weekend we had and moving forward.
And on the other hand, you go to Madison, and pretty much the 440 didn't get in the water due to the issues that it had. But the U40 with Dave Vilwalk, the Beacon Plumbing got in the water, and that boat with Dave behind the wheel absolutely shined. He put on a show in Madison, had a chance to win the Gold Cup. Unfortunately, had the bearing out penalty, but it was a lot of fun to see that boat on the water, and it had to be nice. I know good friends of both of ours, Eddie Canfouche, put that paint scheme together, and had to be fun seeing that thing out there turning laps and not having a lot of the same issues that you guys had at Gunnersville.
Absolutely was. It's one of those things where you're not hoping to just watch the boat go round and round. I mean, we want, the boat should go round and round, but we're there to be competitive and go fast with that boat, and it showed its potential in Madison. That was another fun weekend, having everything back to back to back to back to back on Sunday. It really put a time crunch, and it really tested the team. And that's going back to Gunnersville, where we had all those issues. The team learned, and everybody started to gel when we got to Madison. And normally we don't have a young crew, we just have a newly assembled crew, and it's full. Our crew is full of knowledge, years and years of racing. I mean, I have the privilege of working with some of the smartest guys in the business, and also having new people come aboard that can learn from those guys. And it all really came together in Madison. That was about as tight of a schedule as you're going to see in boat racing, and everything came together. We made our heats. We finished well, and yeah, aside from the final, we had a fairly good weekend, and we left there with little to no damage. So that's a very positive thing, and it puts us that much closer to the next race.
And it's saying something for the Ohio River, because there's a couple of boats that got pretty well beat up. I think half the fleet came back and needed some serious work after the Gold Cup. But you mentioned earlier about the two different sizes of the boats. We colloquially reference them as big boat and the small boat, the 440 and the 40. Take everyone through the differences between those two boats, because especially for our listeners, we haven't talked a lot about unlimited hydroplane racing in there, or a lot here. It takes a lot to get those boats going, and different philosophies just based on how they're built.
It is. They're two completely different holes to start with. The 440 is a lot smaller. It's a narrower boat. It's a shorter boat. It's a lighter boat, and you pack all that together when you're running in water that 7,000-pound boats are running through. You have to think about, okay, the 440 is about 4,500 pounds, and it's going through the same water that a 7,000-pound boat's going through. And we equate it to, you're taking a jet ski out there and playing around with shipping barges, because a lot of it is skid fin water, and a lot of it is just the sheer size of the big unlimiteds. But we had a lot of fun, and are still having a lot of fun putting the 440 on the water. It's been a big learning curve, and it's been a fun learning curve, because it's something that nobody has done. There has been a T53 boat in the past, but to try and do what we're doing is a new venture, and we've ticked off a couple of milestones that we really wanted to do. Having that boat go qualify at 150 miles an hour is a pretty big accomplishment, considering what we're up against. It's short on horsepower. The T53 turbine is a smaller package compared to the T55. The T55 is close to 3,000 horsepower. The T53 is about 1,500 to 1,700, depending on how good our engines are that year. And you really take a hit on the horsepower, but you gain it in the weight of the boat. And that's been a big learning curve, because there's not a blueprint for that boat. There's nothing to base off of. We're just throwing darts at a dartboard and trying stuff, and that to me is the epitome of boat racing and racing in general. It's just, you know what? We're gonna go out there and we're gonna go try and make that thing go as fast as possible. And I love that. I love that about that team, and I love that about that boat. To take it to the T55, the U40 Miss Beacon Plumbing, that's a full size unlimited. That's a boat that has ran before. We've made some changes to it to fit our gearboxes, to fit our engines, to fit our propellers, and do different things. And we started with a hole in a trailer, and that was back in February, and we were gearing up, getting ready to race, and to find, then COVID came around, so we took a year, and we all safely worked on the boat and got it to where it was. And it's an exciting program because we can compete. Before, with the 440, it's hard to compete because of the sheer size difference. But with the U40, the Miss Beacon Plumbing, we have a real shot to compete, and you see that in Madison, where the boat's got potential, team has potential, and we can't be more excited for the future.
So what goes into a setup for an unlimited hydroplane? 'Cause I'm used to cars where, they got suspensions, the camber, gear ratios, all that. What do you guys play around with on the weekend to try and make these things go nearly 200 miles per hour on water?
It's just like an F1 car, or an Indy car, or an NASCAR. It's on water. We play with propeller pitch and diameter, which is like tire size, and we play with gear ratios, which is similar. We play with, we change engines, and we try to adjust our engines to run as close as you can to where the rules allow you. The skid fin, the turn fin on the side, a lot of adjustments are made there just to, with camber in and out, moving it forward and aft or up and down, depending on the race course, depending on the water conditions, and depending on what you're doing. I mean, you can change it between qualifying, where you're trying to just run that boat lights out, to race water conditions, which are two completely different things. We change runner angles, which changes the attitude of the boat drastically. We have a rear wing that adjusts the attitude of the boat quite a bit, and we're trying to always just, we're always trying to dial in and figure out what the best setup is for the race course, for where we're set up, for the gear ratios, for the propellers. I mean, it's all the things in one.
And it makes for hectic times. You got to set on a weekend. You got to set up, or the plan was have to make those changes on two boats between heats. Now, right now it's one. We're hopeful to get 440 back for the Hapo Columbia Cup. What is the update, by the way, on 440? How are things progressing with diagnosing the issues?
Very good, very good. We know what our issue is with the boat, and we know how to tackle it. It's just it's a time constraint. We do everything in-house. There's nobody that has the same equipment that we do on the 440. So everything has to be done in-house, and it's just a matter of if we can get everything put back together and confidently to move on to Tri-Cities. We're very confident right now that boat will be ready to go for Tri-Cities.
Okay. I hope to see it out there again, and we'll also be seeing the Terminator, the U3. I know everyone will be happy to see what that boat will do against the turbines as well. And Taryn in the chat actually asked a great question about what are the most popular state cities for hydro racing. I think full stop, Detroit. I think in the year I've been talking to you guys, we've probably watched Gold Cups from Detroit in this Discord more times than I can count, I think. Everyone talks about Detroit is how great that course is with the big sweeping Belle Isle turn, and then you come to the other side. You got the most treacherous corner, I think, in all of hydroplane racing, the Rooster Tail turn. That, without a doubt, is probably the Daytona of A2 Unlimited hydroplane racing, and unfortunately, we haven't been there in a while. I think since 2018, you can correct me on that, the last time we had Unlimiteds there, and with the pandemic, they haven't had their race the last couple of years. There's been news that they're trying to angle to bring the Unlimiteds back. And right now, we're not going to talk about any of the logistics that have to make that happen. How big would that be for the sport for us to look up in the 2022 season, and we're going back to Detroit probably with the Gold Cup as well?
Oh, it would be huge. I mean, it goes without saying. Detroit is one of the most interesting race courses. It's one of the most historic race courses, and it's a fun one to go to. Viewing for the fans is spectacular. You get it's a longer race course than we race in the circuit right now, but it has, like you say, it has the biggest turn and the smallest turn all in one. And that makes for some very interesting racing, and it makes for some very interesting strategy to tackle the weekend. And that would be a huge thing for the sport. It would be amazing to go back to Detroit. I mean, we personally love going to Detroit just because of the race course and the people and the atmosphere, and we really want to see what both boats will do on the Detroit race course.
I think we all want to see just hydros back on the Detroit race course and an expanded boat count as well, as we've got potential for, we'll have the Detroit Unlimited boats back. Most of that crew stuck in Canada. We'll have more from the Madison team. Of course, your two boats. There's potentially another boat that's getting refurbished that may get on the schedule next season, possibly to run the full tilt. We talk about, and there was a lot of bad that came out of the pandemic. I'm not trying to downplay any of that, but there's an opportunity, it feels like here, if Detroit can come back, if those extra teams do materialize. Well, we know one will with Detroit Unlimited, but if the U27 and, of course, the extra Madison boat becomes a reality, which by that I mean they run the U1, and what is now the U1 was the U91 next season. It's going to be a lot of fun for a 2022 H1 Unlimited year, especially if we're back at Detroit racing for the Gold Cup.
It really will be. I've talked about it a lot, that the sport hasn't seen this level of competition in a long time, in my opinion. Normally it's 2, 3, maybe 4 boats that really have a shot, and you normally only see 2 boats hooking up and running. But if you look at the fleet, you look at the competition and the competitors that are out there right now, it's strong. It's very strong, and it's exciting. I mean, I'm a fan before I'm a crew chief. I love the sport of unlimited hydroplane racing, and I always have. And to look at where the sport is and where it can be and where it most likely will be is very positive, because there's a number of boats that any given weekend they have a shot at winning, and that makes it very exciting. That makes qualifying battles happen more and more frequently and more exciting, and that makes heat racing even more exciting, because you know what, you can't slouch off and get into the final. You have to earn your spot in the final, and the final is going to be a knockdown drag out final. It's going to be, because of the competition and because of where teams are at right now. I mean, you always look at where other people are at, and I've never. I'm fairly new to the sport. I've been doing it for a little while, but I'm new compared to some of the other people, and I've never seen it as strong as it is now. Um, there's a lot of new energy, and there's a lot of fast boats that are out there, and fast drivers that are out there that it would make for a very exciting rest of our season now and in 2022.
It's going to be fun to see how things go. We're going to get two more questions. We're going to get you out of here. First one, you guys had Dave Vilwalk, the greatest to ever strap into an H1 Unlimited at this point. He's either first or tied in about all the records that matter. How important has Dave's feedback been to the development of the U40 up to this point?
Oh, it's been absolutely crucial. He between him and Kelly Stockland, the owner of the U40, you can't get those guys out of the shop. I mean, they're just there all of the time. They are working nonstop, 7 days a week. They just love the sport, and it's a privilege to work with those guys and to have Dave's feedback. What made Dave so successful, in my opinion, is he's not just a guy that you put into the seat and strap him in and he goes and runs. He comes back out and he says, hey, here's what I think the boat's doing. Here's how I think we can improve it. Here's what I'm seeing. And you can really get a lot of feedback from a driver to know, okay, here's how I can make it best set up for you to be successful. And he's number one at it. And you can't put it past him. He's had 67 wins. He's raced. This is what he does. He knows unlimited hydroplanes. And when he climbs out of the cockpit, it's straight to business. It's, hey, let's adjust this. Let's tone that back down. Let's put this propeller on. Let's change the gear ratio and go. And he's really good. So it makes my job a lot easier, and it makes for a better chance of being successful because you're not just looking at the data. You're getting feedback on boat ride. You're not just seeing something. You're hearing a why that's happening. So it makes it easier to adjust with a guy like that.
And last question before we get out of here. Got the Hapo Columbia Cup coming up next week. Usually this would be the first of two races in the home state of the Hydro Fleet, Washington. Only got one this year due to COVID. How exciting is that going to be able to put on a show in front of the hometown fans?
Oh, it's very exciting. Tri-Cities is one of our favorites. We're sad to lose Seafair this year, this Seattle Seafair race, but it's been trying times. But Tri-Cities puts on such a great event. The Hapo Columbia Cup is one of my personal favorites to go to. It's a big, fast race course. It's a well-run event. There's a lot of boats that are going to be there. There's a lot of fast boats that are going to be there, and it's going to make for some exciting racing. And that's what we're all here for. We're all here to put on a show, and we're here to go run some fast boats. And so I'm very excited. It's nice to have a short trip over instead of a long trip. But yeah, I can't be more excited for the Columbia Cup this year. We're looking really good with both boats, and I'm very excited to see the Misspeak Plumbing run again. We tested there in early spring, and we're excited.
All right, Taylor, thank you so much for joining me this evening, and cannot wait for the Hapo Columbia Cup, which happens next week. You can check out all of the action on H1 Unlimited on YouTube. Jared and Tate Meyer put on an excellent show over there. We're going to take our final break of the evening. When we come back, I'll preview this weekend's races and get you ready for the summer break. We'll be right back here on Extra Mile on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Do you love college football? And do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college and the CCCAA and the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS? Well then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we're back here at Extra Mile iSports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. Thank you so much for Taylor Evans for joining me for that interview on H1 Unlimited Hydroplane Racing, getting you guys ready for the Hapo Columbia Cup next week. And you could also see Taylor Evans behind the wheel of a virtual hydroplane as Saturday Night Hydroplane League is getting ready to start. And if you want to join, you're almost out of time to sign up as registration is going on now. Check out the check out the HydroSim website for more information. Just type HydroSim into Google to find more information. We've got 2 divisions of racing and my silky smooth voice that'll be commentating all of it with a couple of my friends as well. Cannot wait to get that started in October. Now, it's time to start previewing races. We've got the British Grand Prix coming up here for Formula One, and NASCAR heading out to New Hampshire, as I said, the Foxwood Casinos 301. Last race until the summer break for NASCAR, as they're going to take an Olympic break here, helping out their broadcast partners in NBC, while Formula One, as we'll jump over to that website, they'll have a couple more races before they go on their summer break. They're going to go after Great Britain to Hungary at the end of the month, and that's going to be it until the end of August for them. So we're coming into a lull period for motorsports, but we'll talk about that in a little bit later. We'll start with Formula One in Great Britain as far as the previews for this week. So we've got this new sprint race thing that we're going to do in Formula One here in Great Britain. We're going to have a sprint race qualifying. 17 laps will be the distance on Saturday. We'll have 2 qualifying or practice sessions, 1 practice session on Friday for traditional qualifying to set the field for the sprint race. Saturday, we'll have a happy hour, 1-hour session before the sprint qualifying race. They'll be using different sets of tires in the sprint qualifying to make sure everyone has proper allocation for the regular race on Sunday. I'm not sold on this. I'm really not. I really don't think we need to mess with Formula One qualifying. It's one of the few things in the sport that actually works. So, I don't know. It's better than the knockout qualifying format we had that one time. Remember knockout qualifying? Remember how bad that was? It is what it is. As far as the race is concerned, Mercedes is running out of races if they are going to stem the tide of Max Verstappen dominance. 3 straight wins for Verstappen from France and both races in Austria. If they don't make something happen here and now, I think you can call it. We're going to have a new World Drivers and World Constructors champion. Mercedes is still developing this car, but when do you throw in the towel and start getting ready for 2022? We know Haas started for everybody else. They didn't even try this season. Other teams are starting to make that decision too. You don't want to put so much into this season that you get caught with your pants down next year with the new regulations, which, by the way, they debuted that new car today. Looks immaculate. Cannot wait to see that in the different liveries and with the different team styling cues next season. Cannot wait for the 2022 car. On the other side, NASCAR, Foxwood Casinos 301 at New Hampshire. We didn't see this track last year due to unfortunate situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's really a bigger Martinsville. We've talked about that before. It's going to be fun. It's a driver's track. They put the sticky stuff down, which the less said about that, the better. It has made 2 distinct grooves there at the track. Makes racing a little bit better. It's going to be a lot of fun seeing this place again. And as we're getting up against it here to getting ready to hand off to our next show, it's going to be a lot of fun. T is picking Brad Keselowski for nearest the win. Interesting. He is not going to be back at Penske next year. It's going to be Harrison Burton taking Matt DiBenno's spot at Wood Brothers, and Austin Cindric getting the 2 next season. That was the worst kept secret, by the way, in the paddock this year, that Austin Cindric was going to get the 2 at some point. Of course, now he gets it now. We are in another period of silly season where a lot of folks are going to be in some strange places next year. Got to relearn the Rolodex of drivers, but I can be long-winded sometimes. It's time for nearest the win. I believe I took Lewis Hamilton last week, so I'm going to take Max Verstappen this week for the British Grand Prix. For NASCAR, for the Foxwood Casino 301, this is going to be a little bit tougher. We haven't had a race there in a little bit. I would pick Kevin Harvick, but he just hasn't done well. Denny Hamlin, though, I keep picking him to get wins and he doesn't do it. That's going to change this weekend. Denny Hamlin wins the Foxwood Casino 301. That's about it here for this show. Remember to follow me, DK Jr. 12 on Twitter. Fiji Sims for Christopher Lehman. Michael's at Michael_Wart25. Make sure you check out the iSports Radio website, iSportsRadio.com, and our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, check out Extra Mile IESR for the show for all your updates and some funny things from us during the race weekend. And of course, if you want to see more of me in print version, I do write for Southern Maryland News. Been there a month. I've loved it. Can't wait to see what the next month brings there. But hey, we're up against it. Frozen Takes with AJ is next. We're going to see you guys next week for the next Green Flag. My name is Darryl Kinsey Jr. This has been The Extra Mile. See you next week for the next Green Flag. Good night, everybody.